Hello, SBI TV subscribers. My name is Greg Alexander, and I'm the CEO of SBI, a sales and marketing consulting firm dedicated to helping you make your number. You are watching SBI TV. This is a monthly web TV show featuring guests just like you, executives trying to grow their revenues. By tuning in each month, you can peek behind the scenes and watch your peers discuss their strategies for making their numbers. On today's show, I am joined by Dave Moore. Dave is the Vice President of North American Sales at Businessolver. This company provides a SaaS solution that improves benefits administration, allowing employees and employers to get the most out of their benefits program. Dave is responsible for developing, executing the company's sales strategy. He has a decade of sales leadership experience, growing up inside of ADP's legendary sales culture, and received his education from Northern Illinois University. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, Greg. Pleasure to be here.
All right. Dave, today I'm going to ask you to help your peers make the 2016 number by demonstrating how to develop and execute a revenue growth strategy. To do this, we're going to use SBI's Revenue Growth Strategy Workbook titled How to Make Your Number in 2016. If you in the audience want a copy of this workbook, go to salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016-report. And if you want to have someone from SBI teach you how to use it, sign up for SBI's workshop at salesbenchmarkindex.com/2016-workshop. Okay, here we go. Our firm's point of view is there are 6 steps to a revenue growth strategy. Today's show is only about 30 minutes, so we're going to have time for one of the 6 steps. If you in the audience want the other 5 steps, tune into future episodes of SBI TV where we have your peers demonstrate each one. On a previous episode, for instance, your peers demonstrated steps 1 through 5. So today, I thought Dave could show the audience how to perform step 6, which is developing and executing a talent strategy for the sales force. So talent strategy is a big subject, but for the purpose of this short show, we're going to simply define it as assessing, recruiting, selecting, onboarding, developing, and retaining a team of A players. There are 7 key activities when developing a talent strategy. So we're going to start at the top and make our way through each of the 7. So Dave, you're an expert on this. You growing up in the ADP culture, you learned all about talent strategy, and you know better than most that unless you put a team of superstars on the field, it's going to be tough to make your number. So I'm going to ask you some questions and have you help the audience understand what a talent strategy really is, okay? So first, let's start with step 1, which is profiles, okay? And a profile is basically an A-player profile for each role in the org chart, right? So first question is, do you have A-player profiles for each role in the org chart, and how did you build them?
Yeah, great question, Greg. And we do have A-player profiles that we've built for each of the key roles in the sales organization. And about 18 months ago, we sat down as a leadership team and we all read the top grading for sales book. And we looked at it, putting some rigor and some process around how are we developing those profiles, starting with a mission in terms of what the actual role is, the key objectives for those individual roles, and then what are the core competencies for each of those roles. And so we put those in place, and then as we started to continue to look at our current sales force, and we started to adjust and make adjustments to that profile so we could get the key profile for each of those roles.
Okay, great. So you took the time to do it. You got the 3 big components on it. So now let's talk about taking those profiles and using them as an assessment tool, so where you evaluate all the employees against the A-player profile, which is our second step we call assessments. So do you perform talent assessments against the A-player profiles? And if so, how often? And what do you do with the output?
We've doubled the sales force in about the last 6 months of our quota carriers. So this is a really big topic for us right now around assessing the talent. And so what we've gone out and there's another great book, Who, and they do a really good job of putting a framework in place of how to assess current talent and putting the process in place to take a look at your current talent, identify any gaps and weaknesses and potential strengths of your team, and then taking a look at that and saying, okay, what kind of talent do we have? What kind of talent do we need to continue to hire for? And then essentially we look at that, and there's three real outputs that come from that talent assessment. And that first output is, do we have the right people? And the second output is, what do our training initiatives look like as we do those assessments? And the third is, and as being in a high growth company where we're adding bodies quickly, is there maybe a time where do we add someone into the wrong role based on that assessment when we look at it against those profiles?
Okay, so you have the profiles. You use the profiles to hire candidates from outside the company, because in your case, you're doubling the size of the sales force. Mm-hmm. You have the profiles, use them as an assessment tool to assess the current talent. And the output of that usually is some type of bell curve. You have A players, B players, and C players. And if I heard you correctly, you have a development program for the B players, which we're going to get to later on in the show, to move them to A's. Here's the tricky part. What do you do with the C's?
Yeah, Greg, that's a great question. And oftentimes we look at that and say, being in a high growth company, we have new channels that we're continuing to look at. And so we go look at the profiles that we have, and do we just have those C players in the wrong role?
Got it.
Do they have the core competencies that we find highly valuable and coveted for the types of interactions that we have with our buyers? And is it simply that we need to put them in a different role within the organization? Right now we have that luxury as we continue to grow, and there's different roles that are opening up within the organization. And there are times, Greg, when unfortunately it's just the wrong fit, and we try to help those individuals find a better fit.
Okay, perfect. All right, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, Dave's going to demonstrate how to source, hire, and onboard superstar sales talent. So stick around after the break.
This is not a table. It is a stage where your performance is measured in numbers. If you reach them, you get an encore. If you don't, it could be curtains. That's why you need the well-rehearsed, proven sales and marketing strategies of SBI.
Welcome back. You are watching SBI TV. I am Greg Alexander of SBI, and that is Dave Moore, Head of Sales at Businessolver. Today we are trying to help you make your 2016 number by demonstrating how to develop and execute a revenue growth strategy. We're using SBI's 6-step revenue growth methodology and the companion workbook to guide our conversation. And today's focus is on step 6, which is developing and executing a talent strategy. There are 7 activities, key activities in this step. Before the break, we reviewed the first 2 activities. Let's now turn our attention in this segment to activities 3, 4, and 5. So Dave, step 3, sourcing. So proactively sourcing talent for each of your key jobs. So how do you estimate what your sourcing needs are, and how do you find great talent?
Yeah. So we go through a planning exercise every year where we identify the key markets that we really want to be in, and we look at what's the talent requirements that's going to be that. So we like to be about 18 months ahead of that. And from a sourcing perspective, that's a key responsibility for all individuals in our organization. We make it mandatory from a leadership perspective. We were constantly looking at our networks and trying to identify what are those A players that are in our networks, so that we can continue to tap into sources of networks that have been built over time with previous jobs and really go after and find those A players.
So you don't just punt it to HR or some external recruiter. It's the responsibility of everybody.
It is. And fortunately for us, we have a very tight relationship with our HR group, and they play a process and a role within that top grading process, which is for that sourcing. And you mentioned something interesting in terms of the outside firms. And we have a couple of really good partners that we use. And I stress the word partners because it's an investment into those firms and helping them understand our top grading process so they feel comfortable putting their candidates through our process and they know exactly what to expect.
Yeah, I love the word partner there. It's such a key word. All right, let's talk about step 4, hiring, which is picking the right talent, right? So what is your candidate selection process used in picking talent?
Absolutely, and we start with a few assessments. We go through a couple of assessments that we use, which is through the Caliper and the Strength Finders assessments. And then we move into an internal recruiter, sales recruiter that's with our sales team that does an evaluation. And then the hiring sales leader then has a conversation with them. And then it goes to another sales leader. And then eventually it comes to me. And that's through the phone screens. And then along the path, we do a calibration. And then assuming that we're all aligned there, then we bring the candidate in for a full day into our offices where they go through a series of interviews with key stakeholders in the company, as well as a work tryout while they're there on site. And
Tell me about the work tryout. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's an interesting topic. What is that like?
absolutely, and it was through actually an engagement with SBI that we surfaced the work tryout. And the work tryout is simply having them perform some of the tasks that we expect out of them, or some of the behaviors that we expect out of some of our sales consultants, which are our sales reps within our organization. And that consists of potentially engaging some of the key stakeholders via LinkedIn. So how do you do an in-mail? Those are some of the things that we have them do. But we have a number of buyers we have a number of internal people that represent some of our buyers as key stakeholders. And so when they're interviewing with them, we have a really good foundation to say, if they were selling to you, how would you feel about buying from them?
That's a great idea. So you actually see them perform the job.
Absolutely.
Versus just talking in an interview.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've talked about sourcing, we talked about hiring. Let's talk about onboarding, which is about getting new hires productive as quickly as possible. So a multi-part question here. So how long does it take for a new hire to hit quota?
And we hadn't looked at the onboarding process as much as we should have in the past. And we've really been taking a look at that, where we had consultants coming in and we were really getting a hire to productivity or on target at about 12 months.
Okay.
We looked at that and we said that's not going to, as being a high growth company and consistently achieving 40% growth, we looked at it and said it's not going to cut it as we continue to grow. And so we really sat down, looked at that onboarding process and said, it can't just be about assimilating them into the company. It's got to be, how do we deploy them quickly, get them comfortable with Businessolver, and have them be productive out in the field. And so we've really streamlined that down to we're about in the 5 to 6 month time frame where we're getting people on board.
Cut it in half?
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Okay, second part is how many new hires actually make it to quota?
Yeah, good question. And what I would tell you, in the past, it was hit or miss. And through some of the recent implementations of some good process around onboarding, we've got it down to about 83% of the consultants we're bringing on are hitting their first year target.
Geez, that's fantastic. So you went from 12 to 5 to 6 months, and 83% of the people actually get to the number.
Absolutely.
It's phenomenal. All right, last part on onboarding. So what is the new hire onboarding process? If you were to kind of give the audience an outline, what does it look like?
Sure. So we broke it down into really the first 3 weeks and want it to be very structured. The first week assimilating into the organization that's on site in our corporate headquarters, going through a series of onboarding processes, as well as a number of company overview, what's the market look like, competitive landscape. And then week 2 is actually sitting down with the consultants that we bring on board and actually making phone calls, setting up meetings for the third week. And then the third week is really about being in the field with the new consultants, whether that's myself or one of the sales leaders, actually getting out into the field and getting on calls with them and doing some in the field training with the consultants.
So shoulder to shoulder.
Shoulder to shoulder.
Kind of watch, show, do, tell, that whole process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. All right, we're going to take another short break, but come back afterwards, because on the other side of this break, Dave's going to talk to you about how he develops, trains, and promotes talent.
Your finish line is your number, and the only way to reach it is to make certain everyone is pulling their weight and headed in the same direction. That's why SBI uses proven techniques to bring everyone on your team on board with successful, standardized sales programs, enabling victory at the turn of every quarter.
Welcome back. You are watching SBI TV. I am Greg Alexander, the CEO of SBI, and today Dave Moore is joining me. Dave is the head of sales at Businessolver. And today we are trying to help you make your 2016 number by demonstrating how to develop and execute a revenue growth strategy. We're using SBI's 6-step revenue growth methodology and the companion workbook to guide our conversation. Today's focus is on step 6, which is developing and executing a talent strategy. There are 7 key activities in this step. In the first segment, we reviewed the first 2 activities. In the second segment, we discussed activities 3, 4, and 5. So let's turn our attention on the final 2 activities to perform when building a talent strategy. All right, so we're at the home stretch here. So we're talking 6 and 7 steps in our process. So the 6th step is talent development, which I briefly describe as developing the skills needed to be successful in each employee. So two-part question here. So do you have individual development plans for your sales team?
Yeah, great question, Greg. And we do, and a lot of those are born through the assessments that we've started to do. And so that really gives us an indication of where those individual performance needs come in and where some gaps are that we need to close. And we also use a tool called Small Improvements, where we're engaging the consultants on a quarterly basis to get their input and feedback in terms of what is it that they feel like. So it's not just us as a leadership team saying, here's where we think you need to improve. It's getting feedback from them. So it's a more comprehensive dialogue in terms of identifying that individual development plan.
So you're connecting the assessment during the interview, hiring somebody knowing that no one's a perfect candidate. There'll be pieces of that you need to develop. And that's rolling right into an IDP?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's
Absolutely.
that's a great idea. All right, and how are they built? I mean, beyond that, so you have your assessment, maybe there's some gaps, you develop an IDP, you push it out into the field, you use this tool. What was the name of that tool again?
It's called Small Improvements.
Small Improvements. So they're using it and they're coming back to you with feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So is the sales manager administering this? Is HR administering this? How much of your time is spent on this? What does that look like?
So HR found the tool. We were doing the typical annual 360 interview process, and what we found is that we're in a very agile and fast-paced industry, and we need more real-time feedback. So they brought us this tool, Small Improvements, to where we could have a forum where we could take input from the field. We do it on a quarterly basis, and then the sales leader, even though they're having weekly one-on-ones, this is a forum to really take a look at some bigger objectives and say, what is it that we want to work on from a development perspective? And then it gives a framework to look in the mirror or in the rearview mirror and say, this is what we set out to accomplish last quarter. How are we doing and how are we tracking against that? And then from my perspective, I get involved and I look at all of the different reviews that the consultants put together and then what the leadership team goes in and they do their assessment as well. And I take a look at that and see how we're doing and look for ways that I might be able to help or put some initiatives in place. Is there any trends across the sales organization that I need to be thinking about from a leadership perspective?
So that is a genuine insight. This concept of agile, which is rapid iteration, applied to talent development of a sales force, which is normally waterfall based. I mean, it takes a whole year.
Absolutely.
The annual review.
Right.
And now you've broken down into an agile process. That's fantastic. No wonder why you've cut your onboarding time in half. That's fantastic. All right, let's go to step 7, our final step, okay? Succession planning. So building a bench of future leaders, okay? So how do you determine how many leaders you'll need in the future?
Absolutely, and one of the things that we do when we do the territory analysis and we start to look out over 18 months, where do we want to make our key hires? We also look at the span of control across our leadership team and start to identify where potentially are we going to need some additional leadership so that we can have the proper span of control and we can continue the onboarding process and the development plans that we want and the coaching that we want out in the field. And so that's essentially how we identify where we need those leadership.
So it's a math equation.
It's a math equation.
Fantastic. Okay. So now you have the number, right? I need this many leaders over this many years. Just do the math. How do you prepare them for the next job before they actually get it?
Absolutely. And one of the things that we've done is we rolled out is these mentorship opportunities for some of our key high performance consultants that we have. And that really gives them an opportunity to work with a consultant that's coming on board into the system, so to speak. And then they have responsibility to help that consultant grow in their career, onboard quicker, deploy quicker, and have quicker success. And that's a way we give them some additional responsibility to say, hey, is this something that you really want to get engaged in? Do you really enjoy the prospects of going out and helping other consultants assimilate and deploy quickly into the organization? And we found a lot of success with that mentorship program.
That's a great idea. I mean, so often we take the top performing sales rep, we throw them into a management job or a leadership job and say, go get them, kid. And they've never really had time to prepare for it. So by putting them in this mentor position, they get a chance to prepare for it.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
And if whether they enjoy it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Find out if they like the job.
Absolutely.
All right. So as you can see, the talent strategy is a key input into the sales leader's sales strategy. Dave, we're out of time. Thank you for helping my audience make their number by demonstrating how you develop and execute a revenue growth strategy, particularly the talent strategy. I would also like to thank you, our viewers, for tuning in. If you enjoyed this show, I suggest you subscribe to SBI TV. You can find it at salesbenchmarkindex.com/TV. Or if it's easier for you, just go to YouTube and look up Sales Benchmark Index. We have some outstanding guests confirmed for future episodes that you will not want to miss. So until then, I wish you the best of luck as you try to make your number.